On this edition of Southern Newsweek, the south feels a late winter sting with wild weather, road closures and slips. And Christchurch's homeless population have somewhere to clean up and have a safe corridor. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Hannah Wilkins. A blanket of snow fell across the south, closing roads and prompting weather warnings this week. Several state highways in Otago were closed as the weather slowly made its way north.
This wintry blast leaving central Otago roads covered in snow and ice. A cold weather front has caused a flurry of road closures across Otago and Canterbury as snow sweeps its way across the South Island. This afternoon, Burke's Pass on State Highway 8, Palmerston to Kyburn on State Highway 85 and Outram to Kyburn on State Highway 87 remained closed. And even coastal areas were unable to avoid the snow. Dunedin's northern motorway was closed early this morning but reopened later in the day. Some Canterbury highways are also starting to feel the effects of the wintry blast, with Porter's Pass forecast to receive 20 to 35 centimetres of snow. Waka Kotahi NZ Transport Agency is advising drivers to take extra care in the conditions as temperatures drop and ice still on some roads. The snow has now cleared for parts of the South Island, but weather warnings are set to remain in place for the rest of the week. Across the South today.
The rising cost of living has seen a greater than expected need for a new service for vulnerable people after launching 3 months ago in Christchurch. Non-profit organisation Orange Sky offers a free mobile shower and laundromat service, which is being used more and more by struggling low and middle income families.
This bright orange hybrid van has been a welcome sight for many in Christchurch. It was launched by non-profit organisation Orange Sky almost 3 months ago, their first service in the South Island. The mobile van offers people the free use of a shower and laundromat services, along with 6 orange chairs, where guests are able to sit and have non-judgmental conversations.
It's about, being open to anybody and just, obviously listening to their story.
The free service aims to offer a bit of dignity to vulnerable and homeless people. However, with the rising cost of living, Orange Sky has also seen an increasing demand for their service from struggling low and middle income families.
A lot more people are coming through and it's sad to see. Families having to decide what they spend their money on, whether it comes down to drying clothes or buying food. It shouldn't be like that.
One of the 70 volunteers in Christchurch is Wendy McCulloch. She's legally blind, with only 10% vision in one eye. McCulloch was worried her low vision would hamper her application to become a volunteer, but was grateful to be welcomed with open arms. She says a random act of kindness was her catalyst to pay it forward, giving up her time to help others.
I was outside the bus exchange one day. I was attacked by a group of teenagers, and one of the, we call them friends, we don't like to call them homeless people, so one of the friends saw what happened and he came across to my aid. With the increase in demand, Orange Sky are looking at establishing more shifts in more locations. In Christchurch, the South today.
A Dunedin woman working to combat a gap in recycling is still in shock about the recognition of her work. Lisa de Klerk was awarded the Jan Tucker Special Award at the Keep Dunedin Beautiful Community Awards ceremony for her work in leading an initiative to recycle the often tricky liquid paperboard products.
These cartons, generally known as Tetra Pak, typically contain long-life milk, juice and plant-based milks. They can't be recycled through the Dunedin City Council rubbish collection. However, One Coast community facilitator Lisa de Klerk has been recycling them for a while, recently winning her the supreme prize at the Keep Dunedin Beautiful Awards.
For people who have shown the energy and the enthusiasm of the late Jane Tucker. It's been around for 2 years now, so I'm the second recipient.
De Klerk led the initiative while working as a One Coast community facilitator. She and a small team collect the cartons, then send them to a Hamilton business, which then turns the boxes into sustainable building products.
The liquid paper board cartons need to be cleaned and opened, so cut along one side, and you can keep the spout and the lid on because that helps to act as the glue when they become sustainable building products.
There are now 7 Tetra Pak collection points between Mosgiel and Waikouaiti. Going forward, they plan to look into a more environmentally friendly way to expand processing capability. The Tetra Pak recycling scheme is a collaboration between One Coast and Waihemo Wastebusters in Palmerston. In Dunedin, the South Today.
The Central Otago area of Bendigo was named by Victorian-era miners who moved from Australia to test their fortunes in a new land and discovered what became New Zealand's richest goldfield. But now, after more than 100 years, Australian exploration company Santana Minerals believes there's still gold in them thar hills.
Bendigo Gully was a bustling hive of activity in Central Otago's gold mining era, with hundreds of people living, working and partying in the area between 1862, when gold was first discovered there, and the late 1800s. But following the gold mining boom, the town's population had dropped to around 140 residents by 1881. In 2008, the area became an official Department of Conservation reserve. But in the last 2 decades, there's been renewed interest in a 21st century gold rush, with Australian company Santana Minerals among those setting up drilling sites in Otago.
So when we drill according to the inclination we choose, what direction and with the depth of our drill hole. But when we drill, these come out in little core boxes.
In contrast to the New Zealand settlement, Bendigo, Australia grew into a city with significant finance, health, tourism and primary industries. The Aussie Drilling and Exploration Company began operating in Central Otago from a leased piece of land on Bendigo Station. Field Officer Roderick McLeod has a long-standing family connection with mining in the area.
I believe my great-great-grandfather worked here driving a horse and car, and then he had a pub along at Sandy Point.
There's already positivity about the fresh exploration prospects, with Santana announcing earlier this year what they describe as exceptional and spectacular results from its exploratory drilling program in the Bendigo Ophir goldfield. The Central Otago sites are starting to glow with gold again, currently employing around 30 people in the mining industry. At Bendigo, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, wintry conditions have caused havoc on southern roads, and a large NASA plane takes off from Christchurch for even colder conditions. Tēnā koe, welcome back. Cantabrians are getting their final look at NASA's flying telescope, known as SOFIA. The California-based aircraft was damaged in the recent storms, but is back in the air ahead of its final journey here this week.
Plane spotters lined the fence at Christchurch Airport to watch NASA's flying telescope SOFIA take off earlier this week. Recent severe weather had damaged the aircraft, meaning it required repairs, and also cancelled the remainder of its final deployment to the Southern Hemisphere. The test flight was designed to allow residents to see and definitely hear the aerial observatory as it flew over Christchurch and parts of the South Island for the last time.
Our team has formed very deep friendships and relationships with people of Christchurch, and that will remain. So although it's very sad that this will be our last deployment, our relationship will be very long-lasting.
SOFIA, the Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, is a Boeing 747 SP aircraft, which has been modified to carry a large 2.7 metre reflecting telescope into the stratosphere. The airborne facility flies above 38,000 feet to put SOFIA above 99% of the Earth's infrared blocking atmosphere. The aircraft was launched in 2013 and has spent 7 winters based in Christchurch, but is now being decommissioned after being superseded by new technology.
Christchurch has played a big role in SOFIA's scientific success, and that will remain forever.
SOFIA will head back to California via Hawaii for its final few missions. Cantabrians will have one last chance to see SOFIA when it departs New Zealand for good at midday on Thursday. In Christchurch, the South Today.
Dunedin drivers struggled with early morning ice and multiple crashes reported across the city this week. Several people were injured as a late wintry blast caused precarious driving conditions.
Dunedin's icy roads causing havoc for some drivers. A late sting in the tail for winter caused slippery roads after the combination of this week's snowfall melted in the rain and then froze again early this morning. One person was seriously injured in a two-car crash at the intersection of Chalice Street and Glendevon Place in the suburb of Vauxhall. And earlier in the morning, this van rolled off Brighton Road in slippery conditions and into a mudflat in Waldronville. 2 people received moderate injuries and 1 person received minor injuries. In a further incident, this truck slid on ice and became stuck on a side barrier along Townleys Road in Kenmure. However, no one was injured. Waka Kotahi NZ Transport Agency is advising drivers to take extra care in the conditions which are expected to last for the rest of the week. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A Dunedin fire safety officer is warning the public about the growing risk of fires caused by batteries used in everyday devices. Risk reduction advisor Scott Lanorzi says even though lithium-ion batteries are popular and handy, they can also be dangerous.
These days, lithium-ion batteries are used in a variety of things, from phones, laptops and tablets, through to power tools and electric vehicles. Fire and Emergency New Zealand Risk Reduction Advisor Scott Lanorzi says they must be charged and stored correctly.
One really important factor with these batteries when we consider them being involved in a fire is that when they go into thermal runaway, the sustained energy release that comes from these batteries, it's not just about the heat. The vapours that these release is an acid-based product which is incredibly corrosive and not very good for your lungs and respiratory tract.
Lanorzi says thermal runaway happens as a result of damage to the tiny cells which make up the battery, which can lead to a chemical reaction taking place, releasing heat, which can then lead to toxic fumes, flames and explosions.
The big thing with lithium-ion batteries is that they're quite small and compact cells, and the key thing with these is that the high energy output that they produce is created at very small cells in the batteries, and it's not like the old days where you had these big battery banks to provide you with power. You now have very energy efficient systems that provide you with power.
Fens were called recently when the battery of this e-bike began smoking in North East Valley. Lanorzi says in the event of a fire due to a thermal runaway, water can make it worse, so it's better to get away from the smoking object and call 111. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Detailed planning is underway for a multi-million-dollar redevelopment of Canterbury Museum. The Mammoth project involves moving 2.3 million exhibits off-site and will see the full museum closed to the public for up to 5 years.
Museum staff are gearing up for the move of the century. The Canterbury Museum is preparing for a major $200 million plus redevelopment of its Rolleston Ave site. The project's been in the works for a while and is expected to take up to 5 years to fully complete.
Parts of the building that are badly damaged in the earthquakes will be demolished. The heritage buildings that we see here at the front of the museum and the Robert McDougall Gallery at the back will be fully upgraded so that the heritage remains.
Planning has now begun to safely pack and move 2.3 million exhibits to a secure off-site warehouse complex, with the process set to start next month.
If you imagine shifting house, it's a bit daunting. Well, shifting a museum is ultra daunting.
The museum has set aside $125 million for the ambitious project. It's got applications being considered for more funding, along with plans to launch a public fundraising campaign.
We've been waiting so long to redevelop that in a way the museum's been caught in a time warp, and it's a bit of a 1990s kind of museum, and we'll be leaping straight to the late 2020s in one go.
Demolition and construction of the new museum buildings are set to start in April next year, with the full project taking up to 5 years to complete. But Canterbury Museum plans to open a pop-up museum in the central city to ensure public still have access to some of the popular exhibits. In Christchurch, the South Today.
After the break, on this edition of Southern Newsweek, a pair of Canadian curlers took to the ice in Alexandra, and the ultimate kicker as a Southland dojo steps into action. Tēnā koe, welcome back. A couple of Canadian curlers have been dishing out some useful tips and tricks to aspiring Naseby athletes. The pair play internationally and recently held a 3-day coaching camp to teach locals what's needed to compete on the world stage.
Keep your arms straight to keep control of the stone. That's just some of the advice Canadian curling Olympic gold medalist Jennifer Jones imparted to her eager students over the weekend. It was part of a 3-day coaching camp in Naseby, catering for both experienced players along with novice and junior curlers.
You know, one day we're going to watch a lot of these young people on TV. They're going to be the next rising stars of curling, and it's really exciting for us to give back to a sport that we love so much and to really root for the next generation.
She was joined by her husband and fellow international competitor Brent Lang, with the Canadian couple spending their weekend helping develop the abilities of local curlers.
We see curling around the world, and here it's got the grassroots, the love of the game, just the community coming together to really make curling shine, and that's really the starting point. So you've got that, and now it's just a matter of having some of these camps, developing the players, and watching them shine.
More than anything though, the couple are happy being back in the heart of New Zealand curling.
We're just here to experience New Zealand and come back to a place that holds great memories for us. We were here for the New Zealand Winter Games 5 years ago and loved the people and the country and the curling facilities, so we had the opportunity to come back and do some coaching, and so yeah, excited to be here.
The pair are now staying on in Naseby for an alternative mission. They'll be helping Australian curlers prepare ahead of their national tournament. In Naseby, the South Today.
Hundreds of people turned up to Dunedin's Crown Hotel last week, and not just to spend some time at the bar. A local developer has permission to erect a multi-use building on the adjacent vacant lot, spurring musicians and supporters into action.
Queuing up for Prince and not pints. Musicians and supporters met up in the public bar of Dunedin's Crown Hotel on Wednesday afternoon, branding themselves ready for action.
Developers have bought land right next to the Crown, and they're going to be building apartment buildings, which is bad news for venues. Dunedin has a horrible history of apartments being built next to music venues that then get the music shut down because of noise complaints from the new tenants, even though the venues have been there for a very long time.
Dunedin musician Tane Cotton produced the design, which about 200 people had printed onto shirts ahead of a protest action this weekend. People brought their own shirts to be printed, some bringing bagfuls for bandmates who were at day jobs. Printmakers Signal Hill Studios provided the woman power and equipment, as it's something printer Eliza McMillan is passionate about.
Love the Crown. I've been coming here since I was a teenager, when I was probably a bit young to see Head Like a Hole and stuff like that, so yeah, love it, and I want it to be here for a very long time.
Documents show resource consent has been granted by the Dunedin City Council for a multi-purpose building adjacent to the Crown, which would include accommodation. Action group Save Dunedin Live Music believes these type of developments can bring about the closure of music venues and have organised an event at high noon on August the 7th in the Octagon. They say the protest is set to feature speeches and music. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A karate club in Milton is helping equip young people with some of the skills to deal with the hard knocks in life. The group's instructor says he started the club as a way of helping youngsters who were being bullied.
Kelvin McSkimming looks on as Milton youngsters practice their karate kicks and punches at the Tokamariro Kyokushin Karate Club. Some of the boys placed in the top 5 at the recent North Island Champs. McSkimming is their sensei or instructor and believes the sport can help prepare young people for the hard knocks in life.
Push themselves in life through training in karate. It's the biggest thing. Just remember that how hard it gets in the world and still keep going.
McSkimming got into the sport as a teenager himself after being bullied. His cousin ran a karate club and invited him to join. McSkimming's now running his own Kyokushin karate-style club at Milton's Coronation Hall, and he's keen to pass on the skills he was taught to deal with bullies to the next generation of teenagers.
Started the club because there was other kids around that was like myself, that have been bullied. Just shows them that they can put their mind to something, that they can do something.
Kyokushin karate translates as the ultimate truth and is known for its powerful strikes, intensive training and adaptability for fighting and self-defence. In Milton, the South Today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news and videos from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz. And you can follow Channel 39 on YouTube to catch our news bulletins on demand. We'll see you again next week. Mā te wā.
Public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air.